Hi there guys, welcome to this daily trending video. I encourage you to look at the description and what it is for me as well as it is for you, this playlist. And so I'm gonna start with the topic of today that I've chosen a few minutes ago to talk about. And it's gonna be today pro bodybuilders. So when I say pro bodybuilders, I'm talking about not natural bodybuilders, the pro bodybuilders that we see in general in all these competitions, from all the how you call it, the NPC competitions to the Olympia, etc. So today the topic is gonna be, are pro bodybuilders beginners in an advanced level? So for you, what could this video bring you? Well, just a point of view of the industry, and obviously I'm gonna be gratifying basically natural bodybuilding because I think that to me is the way to go if you want to according to my values, I think it's the best way to go. For the general population, I think is the right way to go if you want to obviously live longer, actually build a great physique. I just think it's the right way to go. And so for you, it could just mean that I want you to look at the industry differently, potentially to give you another point of view. So you can see how I see things after all my years of experience gymming. And so that, it lifts basically some of the myths that we see in the industry, that, it gives you a better understanding of natural bodybuilding and how you can reach your goal through natural bodybuilding, and how taking the pro bodybuilder route isn't especially the right one, how pro bodybuilders aren't especially the right ones to listen to, and that's because you're the biggest in the industry that you should listen to that person, especially if this person takes products like we're going to see. And so basically, obviously, talking about the fact that, in my opinion, we're in one of the probably only industries where you can be champion and not know what you're doing. You won't really see this in any other sport. You could be very talented, but still, in the sport where you're really talented today, like tennis, you have to still work hard towards the goals, which can also be the case in bodybuilding. But still, I think that the talent that you have in bodybuilding with the genetics and the drugs is gonna take you way further than what it could take you in another sport. And obviously also the will to take the drugs, which are much harder in bodybuilding than probably most other sports. Obviously, not everyone is gonna make this decision as well to take as much products to go as far. And so really some of the people that are champions in the bodybuilding industry are champions because first, they've got good response to the drugs. They're willing to take the drugs for 10 or 20 years, and they train basically, some of them just kind of good, not especially hard. But basically, because no one else, like a lot of people are not willing to first take the drugs for so long, and maybe some of them can't handle the drugs for that long, and don't have a good response genetically, well, you're not really gonna see that many people reach the top level, basically. So the guys that we see really at the top today are first champions because they agree to take the drugs for like 10 or 20 years because they have a good response to the drugs, but not particularly because they work that hard in the gym or that they know what they're doing. Some of them do, but there are exceptions. If you really look at the vast majority of people today that are competing and that are like champions, like today, it's like having a pro IFBB card is like being a champion. But you have so many pro cards that are given like random people that first it loses really the value of it. And most of these people, the only difference for why they have a pro card is literally most of the time, I'm saying, not because they really know what they're doing, but because they have a good response to the drugs, because they're willing to take drugs that others are not taking. So, you know, they reach a certain amount of mass in some cases and of dryness that allow them to compete. But that's really it. And then it's talking about working hard or not hard in the gym. Like, what does this mean? You know, from a natural bodybuilder who had experience, I do think that a lot of natural bodybuilders, like in local gyms, literally train harder than the guys that we sometimes see on the Olympia stage. And as I explained, the only difference between these guys that train naturally in the gym and these guys at the top is that the guys at the top take drugs that they respond well pretty good for an amount of time that most people can't take because they will suffer the consequences before. And lastly, you know, maybe the pro bodybuilders train decently and so it allows them to get to that level. That's basically the difference that I see. From experience, I just know that, imagine, like, theoretically, like if everyone was taking like drugs, people who would respond well to the drugs, and that are natural bodybuilders to that training 3 hours a day or these kind of things, like you would not see anymore the top guys that we see right now on the Olympia stage. Like most of them would be like, I'm not saying everyone, but like most of them like wouldn't even stand a chance compared to like some natural bodybuilders that have been training their ass off 3 hours a day for like years and years. Like I don't think they would. If the natural bodybuilders respond well to the drugs and they were to take them, I don't really see, like a lot of these guys, maybe like there would be much more competition and some of these guys wouldn't, you know, be seen as the legend they are in the world of bodybuilding. So, you know, in my opinion, you don't have to make it basically a general case, but in my opinion, obviously a lot of champions today in the fitness industry aren't really the champions that you would see in another sport. The main talent that they have is that they respond well to the drugs, and that they're ready to take them for that long, and that sometimes they train hard and sometimes not so hard, but yet they still get to the level that they are at. Now, one thing that you could say, and that's why the setup of the video might feel a bit different because I'm coming back to the video while editing it, is that naturals, you could say naturals genetics. What's the difference basically between the fact that it might also be unfair in the natural bodybuilding world, where some natural bodybuilders have much better genetics than others and so put on muscle quicker. So what's the difference, whether it's in the natural competitions or in the enhanced competitions? Well, I still feel like in natural competitions, it's more pure. Like in the enhanced, like bodybuilding, literally their talent might actually just be, for a lot of them, to have great genetic response to the drugs. In natural bodybuilding, they have great genetics to build muscle. Some guys, you know, genetically gifted, but still, like, there is not that. I mean, the talent is pure. You know, it's like in any other sport. Some people have talent, and maybe they will have to work a bit less harder than others, but still, if they really want to achieve greatness, they won't really have a choice because there will be other people with a lot of talent that will work very hard. So in the end, it's all right. But in the enhanced bodybuilding world, I feel like some people, they don't even have that pure talent at the start. They have the talent of responding well to the drugs, which is slightly different in my opinion, because in natural bodybuilding, it's, you know, what you've been given naturally, basically. You know, you've been gifted with this naturally. But with enhanced bodybuilding, your talent hasn't been gifted basically by well, you know, by God or whatever. Like you know, like it's been given because you've taken a product that is dangerous for your health. So basically, that's where I see all the difference, and that means that literally, uh, some like someone who takes drugs and even more drugs and willing to take more drugs than others will definitely go quite far in enhanced bodybuilding. And you know, the amount of work that will be important for them is to take a lot of drugs, rather than a natural bodybuilder who's got great genetics will have to still work hard after the genetics are there, because that's the only way to keep, you know, progressing, etc. There is like, you know, this talent is more pure. When I look at enhanced bodybuilding, that's the opposite, and that's why the people that are gifted in the end, about their response to the drugs, also take more and more, and that's why, you know, we've come to a point where the guys like, they don't even look at working hard anymore. They're just looking at who is going to be willing to take more drugs than the other, and who is going to be more resistant. Is it going to me? Is it going to be me more resistant to the drugs than the guy next to me? And you know, on the long term, is it going to be me as well? And that's why, you know, when you look at old school bodybuilders, like they didn't take as many drugs, and like that's why they still had to work hard. They weren't in that mindset of like, just about the drugs. Like, you know, the closer anyway you get to natural bodybuilding, the purest it is in a sense. So like the guys who in old school bodybuilding, like it wasn't that bad that the physiques would look bad, because they took some stuff to enhance a bit, but they were still working as hard as what some natural bodybuilders can do today, for most of them. And that's why the physiques were beautiful in a sense, because they were not taking much dosage, so they were doing things, I guess, pretty much the right way if you were gonna take these drugs, and they were still working their ass off. So obviously the physiques weren't that bad. Even if today the guys who took a huge amount of drugs weren't just so focused on taking the drugs, but actually like working like some freaky old school bodybuilder, their physiques would be much better. And we've seen some of these guys, like, don't get me wrong, there's some guys who look absolutely huge, and you can tell they still put quite a good amount of work in the gym. But for the vast majority in the AFBB, you just see guys who rely mostly on drugs, and without their drugs, they're nothing. So that was, you know, pretty much the difference that I wanted to explain between what's the difference in the natural bodybuilding category and the enhanced category, in terms of some people will be more gifted than others. You know, it's true in both of these categories, but I feel like it's still more fair in the natural bodybuilding world than it is in the enhanced world, where literally your talent is the response to the drugs, and that if you don't take them, you don't even have this natural talent of building muscle. So it really makes it a sport of, you know, the druggies, like who is gonna be the best at taking the drugs. So it's not beautiful, that's just what I'm saying. But of course, like in any sport, even natural bodybuilding, there will be some sort of unfairness, I guess, in terms of genetics, and some people putting on muscle, you know, better than you. But this gap of unfairness is still reduced compared to when the drugs, I think, are involved. One thing that is very vicious in the industry is that, so I think that basically most of the pro bodybuilders are basically beginners. Sometimes they have beginner knowledge in an advanced body, because they obviously take the drugs, and you know, they might train some of them at like an intermediate level, and it allows them to get to that very advanced level as we see it with our eyes on the internet, but they don't have an advanced level. And so it's vicious in a way, because what we see nowadays are obviously people that will give advice, that are pro bodybuilders, but although they got all these titles and trophies, they will not have literally the knowledge to actually teach random people how to train. First, because some of them didn't really have the experience as a natural, and they actually had not so good results as a natural, and they started getting crazy results with the drugs because they responded well to the drugs. Not because they trained well, because they responded well to the drugs, rather than their training methods. And so today, last time, I think I saw that on the Instagram from someone I know, was sharing basically he subscribed to a program from a very professional, like like one of the most famous bodybuilders basically in the world, that you would know from name. And I looked at the program, and I just thought, I really doubt that you're gonna get results with that. And well, that's another story about the coaching and how you coach people. But basically the thing was saying, we really focus on sensations, and like some exercises were exactly like looking like they were not the same, but basically looking exactly the same, focusing on the same things. And so it was just basically a waste of time. Like the programming wasn't that good. And I just thought to myself, like, how can you be such a champion and actually not give the best advice that you could give? And I don't think I would see this in another sport like tennis. Like, I think like if you ask like a tennisman like Rafael Nadal or Federer or any other guy, these guys would be good coaches, I think. But in the fitness industry, I wouldn't see myself having a good coach from today's bodybuilders that we see at the top of the stage. Like, I would not trust them, and I would not let them coach me, because what they trained like was under the drugs, and a lot of mistakes basically that they do is covered by the drugs basically. So that's what we see most of the time. We see basically a lot of these guys trying to train in a certain way, and to tell this, how they train to people, to their audience online, and how it works, etc. But the only reason it works is not for the methods and the way they do it, but thanks to the drugs. So that's why in general I will advise beginners never to listen to people who are on drugs in the fitness industry, unless before they got experience to realize, like, some people on drugs do give good advice because they know how to train naturally and they know how to train under the drugs. But that's very rare. A lot of people got to the top mainly because of thanks to the drugs and not thanks to the training experience. But before you can point out the truth between these, it takes time basically. When I look at an enhanced bodybuilder today that is a champion, I can tell what he says that is right and what he says that is wrong. And so I can tell when someone obviously can give pretty good advice. We had a pretty good example in the fitness industry that's passed away unfortunately, who was John Meadows. I think that obviously I wasn't agreeing with everything that he says, but I think that this guy would be a good coach for a beginner, although this guy was enhanced. And that's not the truth for everyone in the industry that could give good advice as an enhanced bodybuilder. So that's why my advice always, if you're starting in the fitness industry, is to listen to natural bodybuilders who have an impressive physique, who have shown that they got results. That's, if you're lost, that's really the best thing to do. And so, we come back to saying basically, are pro bodybuilders beginners in an advanced body? Yes, mostly in my opinion in the fitness industry, that's what we see. We see beginners, guys that actually don't really have knowledge, who make a lot of mistakes that are covered from the drugs. It's like running basically with like 100 miles per hour wind behind your back when you're running. Like, you might not be top form or really know what you're doing, but the wind is so strong that it pushes you anywhere, and that the run is way easier. And it's exactly the same with the products that some of these people take. So again, that's not to basically think that it's for everyone like this, but today in the industry, it really is likely like this, and it's one of the only sports where you can be a champion without really knowing what you're doing. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope that you understood what I meant behind this, and that obviously you have to listen. You shouldn't really listen if you're starting to enhance bodybuilders, because you're gonna get lost. You should rely on natural bodybuilding information, in my opinion. This is how I managed to improve myself. When I started, I was lucky enough to find the right website with natural bodybuilders that I could trust, that I could feel I could trust. And so, you know, if I had been in the case where I never found this website, I would maybe still be losing because my mind, because at the start, I was kind of losing my mind over what enhanced bodybuilders were saying sometimes, and I was like, I was questioning the natural bodybuilders. Why do they say that? And I finally understood, you know, why what was wrong, etc. So, uh, you know, be careful who you listen to in the industry. And I hope you enjoyed this subject today. I'm gonna see you next time for a new video, a new trending video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did so, feel free to share a like and, you know, to share the video. Thank you so much. See you next time.